Coming to you from Dynatrace Perform in Las Vegas, it's Pure Performance.
Hey! We are live at Dynatrace Perform with Justin Pittman from RedHat.
Yeah.
Welcome,
in vivo.
Welcome to the Pure Performance / Perf Bites podcast.
Thank you. That was a mouthful. Thank you.
It is. Live from Las Vegas in Dynatrace, the same thing, the opening. I'm standing here, Justin, with my friend Leandro Melendez from Perf Bites Español. Amigo.
Hola, Justin. Nice to meet you.
Yes, and
it
of
was
course,
such a pleasure.
The usual host, the man at the desk, who does not have a space pen, Brian Wilson, is with us.
Hi.
Yes, they're
Hi.
sharing a mic right now. And James Pulley, the master of the live stream video that's happening.
Good morning.
Good morning. Excellent. Justin,
Yes.
welcome to the podcast. How's Perform for you so far?
I have a headache.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
I started
was this-
that treatment this morning.
Yes. Was it an artificially induced headache or something more organic?
I didn't drink enough.
Didn't drink enough. If you
Water.
kept drinking water. Yes, good. That's excellent.
A good twist.
Yeah, I think so. But this is your first time to Dynatrace Perform?
First to perform. I cannot remember how many times I've been to Vegas for conferences, though.
Oh, yeah.
So this
Everything
is
from Comdex to every other big company.
reInvent.
Yeah. So Las Vegas is not new.
No.
Here's a
No,
trivia question, because tonight is the Wednesday trivia night. Are we technically standing right now in Las Vegas, or what town are we actually standing in?
Town are we standing in?
Can I risk to answer?
You can. We actually have a Jeopardy theme music, but
Oh,
Yeah.
bring it on.
he's going to find it just because these are new toys we have.
Yeah, because it's also
Yeah,
an interesting
so
location.
think about
and
it.
You don't know
The Watson
exactly.
voice to answer, to give the correct answer.
Din,
No.
din, din,
There's no-
din,
did I take it
din,
off?
Din, din, din.
All right, we'll work that in. Anyway, but yes, it's technically Paradise, Nevada.
Everything is
Paradise.
fantastic.
We're in
Brian's
Paradise.
brought that up to us multiple times.
That's
we're in
definitely
Paradise.
wrong.
It doesn't. Paradise is not wrong. That was right. Cool. So tell us a little bit about what you do with RedHat and sort of the connection with current connections. As we've had RedHat folks, you mentioned Chris. Was it Chris
Morgan?
And a few others from RedHat. One of the CTOs, I think, last year stopped by and chatted with us.
E.G. Nodden?
Yeah,
Stopped by,
yeah.
yeah.
And some really interesting Dynatrace integrations. Some tagging stuff was very cool, I think. And in kind of the virtualization space. But, what's new for you in the Red Hat world and what brings them to Dynatrace?
Sure. So this year, Red Hat was awarded one of the Partner of the Year.
Partner of the Year,
Dynatrace.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice.
So
Good.
that work was integration with Dynatrace's One Agent and our Kubernetes container platform, Openshift. So
Yeah.
that's why, and that's it. Chris and you, I think, talked about Openshift mostly. last time.
Yeah, because it was fair, and it was still some new announcements a year ago or more
It was
from
yes.
those key integrations. What is the latest news on that?
What
The
updates?
developments?
I mean,
The
can you tell? Is it
Yeah,
top secret?
Don't violate
Some
any
stuff.
NDAs or anything.
yeah, some stuff is still, you'll find out in April
Okay.
when we have our annual conference.
Oh,
But,
great.
Since last we all talked, the big news is we released a major release of our Kubernetes container platform, Openshift.
Right.
So that was a major enhancement for our customer base for a couple different reasons. But we've aimed at simplifying the customer experience and making it easier to consume OpenShift. That's the big change.
That's
but
a
there's
big
lots underneath the covers.
Yeah,
that
ease of
change.
use, and also
Yes.
when you're connecting. I mean, Dynatrace, no offense, is managing
It's
really complex
very-
systems in and of itself. Is I'm okay with super complex software, but not everyone's okay with it to get started. Right, so you make it easier to get started and connecting the dots between all the different pieces, right?
Sure. A lot of people will come, even here at
Yeah.
Perform, and they'll ask a bunch of Kubernetes questions. Hey, I'm running vanilla Kubernetes,
Right.
run 15, and I'm doing blah, blah, blah. Well, we want the customer to not have to get down into the kubelet. Right?
Oh, sure.
If they're down at that level, we aren't providing value to them, right?
Yeah.
And it's not to masquerade. You can still use like Cuddle,
Yeah, if you want to do that,
kubectl
yeah.
if you want to. Sure, the APIs are still there. but we want to simplify it because we know that there's a heavy skill set required to get that deep into it.
Yeah. And is there a lot from the Red Hat perspective in terms of customer or broader install bases that are still early adopt? They're just getting started in the Kubernetes world.
Yes and
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Like those that are already doing it are like super advanced, and then there's
Right.
still some newbies. Okay.
There are. So Chris Morgan actually first trained me way back in the day on Openshift. Like this was 2014, 2013.
Sure.
There were early adopters for
Okay.
sure. And there's been some adoption that's just within the past year. So we have about 1,300 customers.
Great.
And some people are like the lines of code, quantity versus quality.
Yeah,
They hear that number and they're like, oh, yeah, but those are all sandboxes. They're not, real clusters.
Right.
No, these are production-grade enterprise customers that have their mission-critical applications on OpenShift running
Cool.
currently. Yeah. So some were a little bit ahead of the curve, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Oh, well, you mentioned while we were setting this up, something about container performance and all.
Yes.
And on pure performance, we love to talk about performance things. So I was curious where you where you were heading with that topic idea.
Yeah.
So what's going on with container
and I'll
performance?
put that back to you, Brian,
Put
because
that back to me.
Oh, nice.
I'm just a
More
sales
trivia.
engineer. I sit in the front.
we know some information about performance, and there's been
Right.
conversations, but I think that we could really use Dynatrace or other experts to find out what could benefit customers, joint customers.
Right.
So I did a little kind of meta-analysis, sampling of data.
Cool.
And if you go back a couple years, the big performance concerns were how well do containers perform compared to virtual or compared to bare metal,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And then there was the whole stink about the overlay file system and whether it was a
Yep.
blocker, right? So there's been a whole bunch of compute-focused performance. How well do Docker containers or containers in general perform from compute memory resource utilization, right? But when I started looking at the analysis, there was an elephant in the room.
Oh, really? How?
Yeah.
What color of elephant? Were you taking any psychotropic drugs at the time?
No. That might have been,
time.
that might
We
have
are
been
in
more
Vegas.
digestible.
Lively elephant.
I wasn't in Vegas at the time.
You were in paradise
Yes. With a space pen.
with a space pen. It's a space pen, Brian. Go ahead.
The elephant's name is networking.
Ah.
So Kubernetes, by definition,
Dun,
people forget
dun,
is a
dun.
clustering.
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely.
So almost all communication happens over a network.
Yeah.
And most of the performance analysis hints at, well, the I/O wait time could have been caused by over the wire. But they don't really delve into
Yeah.
how much of that was really responsible because of a NIC driver or an overlay
Right.
files, overlay network, right?
Yeah.
Double encapsulation, or
Yeah.
there's not a lot of detailed information about that.
Or somebody that trimmed the red, white, or the orange, white, orange, the cables just a little bit too
Oh, yeah.
short. I mean, it's linked. No, it's not linked. No, I'm linked. You're not linked. I'm linked. Yeah. See,
Mark's
It's
going
like
back to some
networking-
nightmares he's had. So yeah, networking is always a challenge, right? Because even
Yes.
if you take a look
well,
at
snipping wires is
But not that, but network monitoring.
hardest
There's,
part.
there's your Wireshark type of tool that gets
Yep.
really down to the weeds, but that's not an area most APM tools go into because that's a very highly specialized to be capturing all that all the time. You know, again, one of the ideas with APM is like you're just capturing everything all the time.
Yeah.
And it seems that I don't know, does that cause overhead if you're running something like Wireshark on a network connection all the time? Because, you know, the idea is, well, why aren't we looking at all that data all the time? It's usually when there's a problem detected in the network, then we throw the analysis tools on to get the deep dive into the network. But otherwise, it's hands off, right?
Good point. Good point. Yeah, probably most people would say Wireshark, TCP dump would have an overhead,
Right.
just because of you're asking the networking layer to process every packet coming through.
Yeah.
But there are some inference happening, like Dynatrace's agents seem to infer, but I don't want to speak, but it looks like when I look at the dashboard, if you make a client call and then you have timestamp data about the server response, then you can infer the latency,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
Something
right.
So-
in between was
Or packets dropped and retransmissions. We pick up
Yes.
some of those
Yeah.
from the network
But
statistics.
it's not the same as like a span port or a mirror port is the most least overhead way to just take a copy of TCP.
right, but then
dump
you're
every
talking
day.
about adding hardware, and if you're running in the cloud,
Yeah, and
You're-
you
yeah.
you can't touch a port to port wine maybe, but
And then when you
anyway,
start
we're-
going into service meshes, it gets even more common. And,
Exactly.
and we do have
Exactly.
monitoring on the service mesh. So I know Istio, we can look at some of the performance, and we're tracing through and getting some stats from Istio and some dive into there. But it's still going to be, there's still the wire between when anything that's going on there. There's still that wire piece, right?
Yes.
And is that where you're saying
Yep.
that's the elephant?
I think a problem of what you're mentioning that I see in other areas of performance is that you trust that you will get support from a separate each entity. I mean, network is integrated, but you don't really dig that much and try, as you say, parsable, double encapsulation, blah, blah. But it happened like in another layer where usually you are just trusting that it will do.
Like the public cloud engineer is supposed to look at that for you.
Yeah.
Exactly,
And is that
and you are
happening?
like, I expect it to work, but that's my bottleneck. That's what is pretty much causing. That's the elephant.
Or you drink the magic Kubernetes Kool-Aid, where what network? What are you talking about?
Which one?
They're containers.
Calico
It's a container that just
vSwitch.
it just
It's
floats.
in the ether.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, a lot of Kubernetes folks don't even get to that level exactly, and rightly so. Openshift doesn't want to have to expose that to our customers.
Yeah, that's the convenience and
but it's
loveliness
a
of it.
valid concern, and we do tell customers, okay, virtualization could benefit you for your containers, like the host nodes could be virtualized,
Right.
but you could face double encapsulation in that type of environment, and
Right.
maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's not a high performance.
Most of the time,
real-time.
you don't notice it.
You don't
even.
notice. But
Yeah.
for other customer use cases, they are real time, low
Yep.
latency, and it does matter. Right? So
Yeah.
So you have any ideas on how to tackle this?
no.
Okay.
So that's why we're bringing it up. Yeah,
That's
we're
why we're-
brainstorming.
So anyone out there listening, you got an idea?
Yes, send us an answer at
don't s-
ask@perfbytes.com.
Or don't send us an
I think
answer,
it's
develop the answer,
give,
and then
give Brian the
create a
answers
tool
at
and
perfbytes.com.
sell it.
That would be answers at Perfect.
Answers,
right?
yeah.
Just created their next company for them
Yes,
right
there you
there.
go.
There you go.
Give
That's
you
what we like
credit.
So
to
you
do
give
here.
Justin, you give
Inspire, justin.com. I think we're good at that. Awesome. What else is new in the Red Hat world? You're multiple years now into the IBM acquisition. Have things settled down
Right.
and things are back to growing? And
So I don't know if
good?
this is what you mean, but the big announcement is Jenny
The
is
CEO.
stepping down.
yeah.
So Arvin at IBM is becoming the CEO,
The new head.
but Jim Whitehurst
Right.
is becoming the president of IBM.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he's
So you're kind of meshing two
weaving
people
our
to-
way into the big blue.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I think it's fantastic how you guys have taken over IBM. I really
You
enjoy
said that.
You're right.
No, I mean, I'm still at heart. I'm still a JBoss guy. I like JBoss.
Nice.
But, that's fine. But in the Red Hat world, something red took over something blue. Oh, it's Halo.
Purple.
It's Halo all over again.
It's purple.
The
Red versus blue.
The purple takeover.
Purple Hat.
Oh, I like it. So that's good. And then, so some changes happening to lead the company, and it's been good.
It seems like it was well received, even by the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To your point, by analysts. So we are still a separate entity. I mean, I still have a Red Hat email address.
You have a
and
Red Hat
the
jacket
logo
on right now.
and-
It's actually a
yeah,
really nice
there's-
jacket.
There's no, and I'll sell it on eBay for you. Make a profit on everything. But there are some changes.
Yeah.
Like we are doing joint solutions, including with some partners like Dynatrace on a fuller stack solution. Let's say like OpenStack is the platform, but IBM Cloud Paks with their application server or whatever is running on top, right? So there's more full stack with integrations with other partners.
Cool.
So that's beginning to develop.
Yeah, and that was some of the promise, I think, from the initial working together with IBM anyway, was opening those doors and building those.
Yes.
That's
You
good
would
to
be
hear.
able to leverage and interconnect Watson. Is it also play with?
I
it and
haven't heard
turn around?
anything for integration with Watson. I'm
Red
waiting
Hat
for
Watson.
it to
That'd
answer
be-
all Jeopardy questions.
Oh, no. Here it
All
is.
performance questions.
Now we're going to be
Through
like
Watson
matchmakers.
Davis.
Watson Davis.
They get mad.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Now, when they get married, which name do they keep? Who takes? Do
Well,
they
Watson
have a
is-
last name?
Watson sounds
Does Watson
more.
have a last
Watson
name?
sounds more like a first name.
Okay.
Watson
Right?
Davis. That
Go
Like
Watson
Davis
the
Watson?
last name. That
Like you got Mac Davis, you got Watson
Yeah.
Davis.
Have we checked their astrology charts? I mean, would they be a good match? You know?
Interesting. I mean,
But both
possibly.
Leos or
Both Leos. Maybe that's a clash. Differences attract, kind of thing.
Which one has a space pen though? Also, in terms of all that stuff, you were mentioning some things about what's going on with CoreOS.
Oh, yeah.
right, yeah.
So, yeah, and maybe OpenShift, and I don't know. I think you guys talked about You have things you're going to be revealing about OpenShift, but not quite
Not yet.
right now.
Yeah, not
But-
totally. But the CoreOS is public info.
Yeah.
This was a substantial change, but it's been in the works for a long time.
Right.
Essentially, we moved the latest release of OpenShift to being a appliance, if you will.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So instead of going in and manipulating the operating system that are the container hosts
Yeah.
inside the cluster, it's a fully managed operating system from its upgrade, from its reconfiguration,
Nice.
all doing it in a Kubernetes native way. So instead of doing a Linux distribution update, like Yum update,
Yeah.
you're supposed to have a new built image and bootstrap CoreOS from that new image. Wait, this is not new. We tried this with like Packer from HashiCorp, Corp,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Back in the virtual days.
Yep.
But someone would generate a new golden
You'd
image
Start golden image, and that's what would rev
Yes.
from infrastructure as code. And
along
everything.
with the application.
Yeah.
Yeah. People. The only problem was the VM was the whole OS, so it was huge to do. And
Yeah.
so CoreOS is a minimal footprint. You still create a new whole image,
Yep.
but you deploy it the Kubernetes way. So it's still controlled through operators,
Right.
Kubernetes
Nice.
APIs to deploy the host. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the big change. But there are some nuances to that, right?
Yeah, there's always nuances.
Yeah. People have given us feedback, and they said, well, we want to remote manage these operating systems.
Right.
And we have essentially opted to not do that for reasons that it
Great
becomes
reasons.
mutable at that point.
Yeah.
So like SSH into CoreOS,
Mhm.
you can do it for debug reasons, but it's not there to do a Yum update.
Just
'Cause you break the whole-
security first mindset is a really good idea. Yeah.
It's a huge mindset
Yeah.
change for sysadmins. We all know that because
Yeah.
we've all got used to you SSH into a box, you manipulate it on the fly,
Yeah.
and this is a pretty big change of mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You dread those days when you accidentally hit W in the console and you're like, wait a minute, who are those people? Or how did they get in here? That's not, I don't recognize any of these IDs. Yeah. That's a
I?
fun day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are some of the CoreOS changes that came
That's
in the
pretty
latest
cool.
release of OpenShift.
So that's going to be. So you're basically managing the OS as if it was code being
yes.
deployed like remotely from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Which also
you know-
means you can. Speaking of security again, I mean, one of the beauty of the whole thing, if it with a small footprint like that, you like a given instance running and providing value to your company can disappear every hour. Like
Yeah.
it's if somebody actually were to, explicitly get into the system, or you have a breach of some, they're not going to be there very long because it's like, oh, you're on an iceberg that's melting. Oops, I
Yeah.
need to redo. By the time you actually figure it out, you can wipe all the stuff really quickly.
But I'm also thinking in terms of if you're running your code on a system that's going to require something updated in CoreOS, your OS is now part of your build that you push.
Yeah.
That's
which
exactly
is-
right.
Pretty darn cool.
It is.
You know?
Even the classic way of updating the operating system, like let's say back in the day you were going to add a kernel module, right? Usually you would dynamically load it into the kernel, standard way. Now, kernel drivers or any kernel modules are loaded through containers. So you literally deploy a container to the host,
Yeah.
and it injects itself into the kernel.
Yeah, and you can turn off all of the hooks that would allow you to do a kernel mode, to block a kernel mode invulnerability, right?
Yes.
All the execution pieces, because it's like we don't update that way. We don't need those hooks to be open anymore.
Yes.
Again, maybe on a debug instance if you were
Yeah.
testing or doing something, but never, in the core. That's really good stuff.
That is.
Nice.
But it
It's
is
very
a
dynamic.
big shift. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
trying to get the
It's kind
word
of
out
an
and get
open
feedback.
kind of shift.
Yeah.
You
Open
And what sort of
the-
adoption are you seeing for
the rim shot. We don't have the rim.
for that type? Aren't the customers like worried, scared, or saying like, always that something new
reasonably
comes,
so.
it's-
Anytime you tell someone about change, there's a fear factor. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's people are anxious. They're gonna have to reskill, retrain, whatever,
Mhm.
right? So we have gotten that feedback, but we think that this is the right way to go. This has been
Yeah.
in the works for many years
Yeah.
to get to this because there just was too many snowflakes were being created with the operating systems, and you would lose control.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, as in my regular day job, not as a podcasting superhero with a space pen. I work in the financial sector and the payment sector, so compliance, PCI compliance, depending on your level, can be brutal. Probably almost the biggest expense to the company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's absolutely music to my auditor's ears. That it's like, oh well, you can give them stats that are like, there is no such thing as Terrible Tuesday, where oops, I forgot to crash. How come I can't? And at once a month at Tuesday comes out. Thank you, Microsoft.
Yeah, there is a security play to this because then
Beautiful.
the auditor
Absolutely.
knows there's a single method for updates, and you control it.
Yeah, fully controlled. Yeah. Nice. This is really good news. Thank you this is very enlightening.
So in general for you then, right? So you have still close to the new year. What are you looking forward to this year? I mean, obviously, without revealing anything that you're doing, but in terms of what's going on in the industry, everything else, what do you see on the horizon that's got you most excited? On the technology front, that is.
Just a trailer for coming up next summer.
No, just your own interest, just kind of more in your own interest of like this, maybe it's the CoreOS thing, or could be something outside of it. But what's got you like? Oh, I can't wait to see how this develops.
There's stuff he can't talk about.
Maybe apps that don't affect our political process anymore, right? To 2020, technology will solve all of our election problems. No, I think I still am excited about Kubernetes.
Yeah,
I know that seems boring to say, but if you look at the market, there are so many players now who I think have come to realize. If you look at the announcements coming out with Project Pacific from VMware, if you look at Google Anthos. AWS Outposts, they're going to add EKS to it. So there's a lot of announcements now. Pivotal now has a Kubernetes instead of a Cloud Foundry offering, right? So there's a lot of... I think the hype is over.
Yeah.
And it seems like
It can be a real thing.
The adoption started to
the
actually
adoption
pick
is
up.
really picking up from commercial vendors. Yeah.
And then we can ask, what happened to Docker?
Oh.
Where'd you go?
I heard they were acquired by Mirantis. Yeah.
But again, a lot of these same questions where these other things are moving forward, getting investment, and the question is, Docker could have had this. Docker Swarm could have been amazing.
Yeah. But it's funny, like in a lot of the accounts I work with, so I work more with a lot of the smaller companies, and they're just starting to look to taking that step into the cloud or getting off of their monoliths.
Yeah.
And there's still that mindset of, we're looking to explore Docker. So the kids at the top of the class, and I'm not saying this to say these other customers at the bottom of the class, but the kids who are way ahead
Trendy,
are already on the new things.
You're
and
right.
that message isn't trickling down to the people who are just starting to be like, I think we're going to start making that move. I think the news of Docker and some of these other ones are sort of being left behind, and you should just focus up here. So we're seeing it's just slow. It's a slow message getting out. It's slow for the message to get through.
I don't know if that was a segue for me to comment on Docker from you.
I don't know. I'm just saying those things to you, but you got something
So
there.
in their latest release of Openshift, we actually did stop shipping Docker binaries.
Oh.
Yes. Okay, so that wasn't a
No,
segue
no,
for
no,
me?
no,
Oh,
no.
was
That's
it?
not
Oh,
unusual.
Okay.
You hear that news a lot from other places too. So
And it was it goes back to the Moby and what they were going to do with upstream and all that. So then we get asked by customers, okay, what do you mean? I can't do a Docker build? No, you can still ingest a Docker file, do a build of a container. That's all still doable.
Yeah.
But if you literally want the Docker tooling, you need to go to Docker Inc.
Yep.
I mean, the functionality is all there.
Yeah.
And that's a big change. That we're still getting the message out there. But I think that some people are seeing the kind of like, they started something that was really, really great.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And we owe them that credit.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
All
Kicked
this other
open the
stuff
container
started
door.
open.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't be open. It's open. I don't know why I have the word open.
Business.
Yeah. You need to shift your thinking.
But
All right.
All right, is there anything else you'd like to add? Or any fun plans for Vegas? You're going to go see Wayne Newton tonight?
Food, shows,
Or
gambling?
I wasn't invited
maybe
to this.
Debbie Reynolds is performing down at the Tropicana.
Weren't the Osmonds in town Maybe that
Actually,
was
last year they
last
were.
year the Osmonds. You said the Beatles show is still here, right?
Well, that's a
I
circ.
think
That's a permanent.
Yeah, that's an awesome.
Carrot Top is in town. There's a lot of
Carrot
people.
Top with his
Yeah,
eyeliner.
no,
Yeah.
especially if you're
But
vegan,
if you are a
that's,
but if you are a Beatle fan, I do highly suggest the Cirque show. The best part about it is they have this really great sound system,
Yeah.
and you get to hear the Beatles music like you haven't heard before because it's blasting through this great sound system, and it just sounds so freaking amazing.
Yeah.
That to
Where's
me was
that
my
at?
favorite part.
It's a
It's one of the Cirque du
One
Soleil
of the Cirque
shows.
du Soleil's.
Yeah.
But just the sound alone, like the
Yeah.
show's good, but I was more just like in heaven listening to
Yes.
this music that I've listened to a
Indulging
million
your
times, but in a
ears.
whole new, just
Experience.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ear experience.
yeah.
Cool.
So
Music
that's
to your
us.
ears.
Yes.
Yeah.
My ears were open to the shift in the music. All right, we're beating a dead horse with a
Justin
dead horse
Pittman,
with a space pen.
Are you a social media person? Can people follow you? Do you share things?
Only on
Obviously,
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm not really on any of the other
Yeah,
platforms
so
anymore.
maybe people can look up stuff on LinkedIn. And of course, Red Hat has all sorts of announcements, so you can go to the Red Hat website
Yeah.
and check that out.
Yeah, actually, we are doing joint workshops with Dynatrace. That's, I think, on Dynatrace's
Like events page.
events page.
Okay.
Yep, we're doing several in the next 3 months.
That's
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
Good. And then there's also your big conference in 2 months
Yeah, that's going to
April.
be in San Francisco.
in San Francisco.
Yep.
So if you're any diehard Red Hat fans,
Go to
for
it.
That sounds
Yeah.
great. Justin, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
This
It's
was really,
such
really
a
great.
pleasure. And thanks
Was
for
good.
coming.
Yes, thank you very
Brian,
much.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Thank you. Can you hit mine?
And that's it for the show for this moment while we roll up the outro.